Hello, class. So I was looking over our lab in Formative today, and it seems like there was some misconceptions. A few of you were pretty insightful, but I just want to go over a couple things to clear some of this up. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and do the directions really quickly here. We move the blue sphere all the way to the left. We go ahead and we put this meter stick with a 0 at the center of gravity, which is right in the center of the sphere. And then we need to change this mass of the blue sphere to 100. Let's see, the slider will probably work a little bit better. There we go. All right. So we are not touching the ruler during our experiment. The distance is not going to change. The distance is our control. It's our controls. Okay? It's not a variable. The distance is not changing. It's our control. So let's play around with this. Let's change the mass of the red sphere and leave the distance alone. All right, so we can change the mass of this red sphere. And what's happening? Well, we can see that these vectors up here, these vector forces, are actually increasing the larger we make the mass. If we decrease the mass, then the vectors are also decreasing. So what are vectors? Well, vectors, they're those arrows that have a direction and they have a magnitude. And the direction for the red sphere is to the left, and the direction for the blue sphere is where? Well, it's to the right. And what's the magnitude we're talking about here? Well, the magnitude is, usually has to do with a number. And if we look above this vector, we see the force on mass 2 by our first mass is 0.00000099697 newtons, right? So that's a pretty small number. It's like 9.97 times 10 to the negative 8 newtons. So it's a really small force being acted on this mass. Thank goodness for significant figures and scientific notation. All right, so that's what's changing. All right. So what have you learned? Well, I don't know what questions you might have, but something that I've learned is if I decrease the mass of the red sphere, the force due to gravity decreases. But if you increase that mass, then the force due to gravity increases. So let's look at this. So we're gonna look at this toggle switch. All right, this constant radius. We're gonna turn that on, and that means that even if we change the mass, the radius is going to remain the same. See what happens when we change the mass without keeping that constant radius? All right. So think about that. Why does that matter? Well, it's probably because when you keep this object right here, the mass changes, but so does the radius, and it's proportional, which means that the object is probably made out of the same material, like it's 100% gold, okay? But if we were to change it, that means there is less of something inside. So it could be something that's filled with gas, but it could just have different, it could be made up of different elements. So that's, the volume doesn't change, and so that's kind of the insight to take away from right there. All right, so above we were asked to change the mass of the red sphere and leave the distance alone. And the question is, what is the independent variable when you do this? Variable means to change something, all right? Variable is change, and there's also a constant. Constants are things that don't change. So which one of these changed? Was it the red sphere? Or was it the distance? Well, we were told that we're changing the mass of the red sphere, and that we have to leave the distance alone. So we know that a constant doesn't change. So distance must be our constant, and our mass must be that independent variable. So, knowing what we know about variables and constants, what would be the dependent variable in this case? We change the mass, and that is our independent variable, and we know distance is our constant. Did something else change when we changed the mass? Well, let's look up here. So we changed the mass. What else is changing? The vector, right? And the vector relates to the force due to gravity, which is what we talked about right here in our first question. So be very, very careful when you're trying to determine what variables are and what constants are. In this case, the dependent variable, the thing that's changing based on our independent variable changing, is the amount of force, or the force due to gravity. All right, class. Hopefully this has been of help. Finish the lab. Go back, review your answers, and have fun with it, guys. All right. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later.